Costas Christ made an eloquent and passionate business case for why wellness of the planet is integral to wellness tourism. Today, he's coming back to join us again with a panel of activists in the corporate arena to have a discussion and show us how to make wellness of the planet part of wellness tourism and wellness business in a practical reality. So back to you, Costas.
Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all enjoyed a nice lunch. I'm going to invite each of our panelists up here, and then we're going to go right into a conversation. Yesterday, we talked about, or you heard me talk about sustainability, the importance, and so on. Well, today on this panel, we have both companies that are engaging in trying to move this agenda forward within their own businesses. And then we also have some representatives of companies who assist those hospitality sector, travel sector, others in moving that or taking sustainability to the next level. So one thing you'll get out of this is it's a challenge. It's not always easy, but it's doable. So let's invite the panelists to the stage, and we'll begin our conversation. Brian Anderson, who is the Sustainability Director for Chiva-Som Resort, a resort you've heard quite a bit about. Brian, please take a seat. And Andrew Gibson, you've seen him on the stage before, and he's the Group Spa Director for Mandarin Oriental Hotels. Andrew, thank you. Peggy Liong, who is the Group Executive Director for Mission Hills, China. Incidentally, Mission Hills, China, the largest spa in the world. Peggy, we're happy you're joining us. André Russ, Vice President of Sales for EarthCheck. And EarthCheck is, we'll find out a little bit more, but one of those companies that helps others understand better and follow and track their environmental footprint. And Rubina from different, but similar company, again, helping other companies understand how they can measure both their impacts and measure and benchmark their practices. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining. I'm going to take a seat. Right here with you, and start out by, I guess, asking a couple of quick questions. Well, let me start, if you don't mind, not just because you're sitting next to me, but no, but Andrew, you said something interesting to me yesterday. We were talking in the hall, and you said, we've kind of played around with this sustainability idea for a while within the Mandarin group. We really weren't known for it. He personally has quite an interest in it. But then he said recently the executive team has just made a decision to bounce this thing right to the top of the platform of the hotel. This will now become a strategic priority. Why?
Well, actually, we started it about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we launched our first publication last year, and we just launched our second publication of what we are doing and how it's working this year. Why? Why is it so important? Well, quite frankly, it's come from the very top. The leader has finally got it and wants it, and it filters down that way. What is really interesting is, as a corporation, you say, okay, we can produce great reports and we can get in all the benchmarks and everything. But what really is very, very interesting is whilst the leadership suddenly got it and said, let's go with it, actually at grassroots level, it was happening tremendously. When the stories we've uncovered and the things that have been going for years and years and years have been going. So I think, coming to your question then, why did the leader suddenly get it? Why was that? It's because of a number of things. There's no one single reason, but a number of those things are, one, public demand. Public are now traveling and wanting to have something to do with sustainability and making their choices of which hotels they stay in based on that. Two, the WTTC, quite frankly, have got this in as one of their objectives and goals, and we're part of the WTTC, so we want to be conforming and filling into that. And three, I think something personally happened to our leadership team in some of those things. And four, I'd like to take a little bit of credit, just a tiny bit. I've been telling him that, I'm from a sustainability background, we should be doing this. So I was part of that opening committee that got it going.
All right. Well, And incidentally, as we move through, you know, all of you are experts in your own fields and work, so don't hesitate to comment on some of the things that come in. But I want to pick up where you just spoke. It's the right thing to do. What I didn't hear from you was a kind of, or maybe I did, you said more people are interested in it, but I guess I want to come back to that theme, which is the ROI side. Chiva-Som, you guys, you've been at this for some time. I know sustainability in your brand's been important. You've been practicing it for a number of years. Is there a return on the investment?
Absolutely. You know, in the destination spa industry and resorts and hotels, we use a lot of electricity, a lot of gas, a lot of water. And recently we did an energy audit with the Clinton Climate Initiative on the entire operation. And they determined exactly where our electricity and gas, where it's going to. And in most hotels or resorts, about 15% of your electricity goes to lighting. And then another 50 or 60% of your electricity goes to air conditioning in a tropical climate. And what we did, we replaced all of our lighting with LED. So we went from 50-watt bulbs down to 8-watt bulbs, LED, and the chiller system, we replaced that as well. So overall, we saved 80% of our energy or electricity used for lighting. We reduced it by 80%. So we're using 20% of what we used to just on lighting. For our chiller system, that was reduced by 43%. So altogether, it was a 26% reduction in electricity, 26% reduction in operating costs for electricity, and the related carbon emissions. So it definitely pays off.
If I can just touch on that, I mean, big businesses, to actually move them to do things, often there's an ROI, because our hotels are not all necessarily owned by us, they're owned by investors and owners, and we have to persuade them to do capital costs that may not necessarily generate the return in the short term, and so we have different objectives. But what we have discovered is that between 2007 and 2012, by focusing on energy, because that's the big one where you will get the saving, we've saved just under $20 million.
That's a pretty big figure, folks. Just under $20 million. That's nothing.
Worldwide.
Nothing to laugh.
Worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide. It doesn't matter. It's 20 million. It's 20 million. That's a pretty significant savings.
And Christoph, one other thing to mention: the lighting paid itself off in 1 year, and the chiller system in 4 years. Yeah. And that's very quick.
Very quick.
So you enjoy those savings for many years to come. No. And that's actually one of the issues with doing energy efficiency building retrofits is a lot of CEOs, they don't see the return on investment, the owners as well. A lot of the general managers of the hotels, they don't really support the idea because they may be moving to another hotel soon, a different location, and they may not see the ROI on their spreadsheets.
That quickly. I'm going to come back to this ROI question in a moment, but Peggy, you are, as I said, as you walked up the stage, Mission Hill's, largest spa in the world, largest golf course in the world. You've won various accolades. Right. And just recently, the company has decided that sustainability is going to be a key priority. Why? And I was thinking about that, to be honest with you. I was thinking about it in the context of, from what I understand, Mission Hill's market is 80% China, possibly even a little bit higher than that. Most of the information I provided yesterday talking about the business drive, people wanting sustainability, was North America, European, Australian-derived research. Does the Chinese traveler care? And if they don't, why are you embarking at this point to a significant degree to move sustainability forward in your company?
Okay, I think our case is a little bit different from Chiva-Som and Mandarin Oriental because we are the owner and we are the operator for the hotel, the spa, and also the golf courses. And China is an emerging market that everybody knows. So the role that we are playing in sustainability is not that whether it is important or not to the Chinese or is important or not to the international travelers, but it's important to educate the China market, to let them know that sustainability It is very important to the environment, and also it is important to the people and in the provinces, in the area that we operate.
Do you think, and hats off to you, if I understood you correctly, and what you're saying is, we see this as a strategic priority to educate the Chinese traveler. That's a big mandate, and clearly an important one. How do you think, well, I guess related to that would be, we hear these days, there's a lot of talk about environmental concerns in China. You know, there have been media reports of air quality issues in Beijing, and the Chinese public themselves becoming concerned about this. Do you feel that a company of the size of Mission Hills could kickstart a kind of environmental consciousness in the business community? I mean, is that part of this or what?
Okay, I can't be commenting overall for the whole China, but Mission Hills as a private company, we play a very important role, and sustainable is very important in our growth. First of all, as we all know, Mission Hills is big. Mission Hills is about 40 kilometers square. And with the size that we have, and also the number of staff that we employ, we have 15,000 employees that directly working with us, and another 20,000 of contractors and also business partners that the livelihood depends on Mission Hills. And not to forget the number of projects that we have in the pipeline. So with all the consideration that we have, it is important for us to start from today, and also to make sure that the environment, the nature, and the culture is being retained for the future generations.
I think Peggy's made a good point, because we're opening up hotels in China. And if you've got to start by educating your own employees and getting them. There is no resistance to that, absolutely no resistance. It doesn't matter what nationality, Chinese or any other. And you start with them at a grassroots level and it just spreads out into the community.
So we have two more panelists here I want to turn to, because their piece of this pie is slightly different, and that is the companies out there that help companies measure their footprint, assess their impacts. And I guess in the case of GRI, now when I think of GRI, I think of it as mostly focused on larger companies. But you look at the environmental footprint, you look at the economic side of it, and you look at it at the social side of it. I guess I can understand the way Brian was saying how we've measured our energy output, we've got meters and so on and so forth. Well, economically, I can think in the context of, well, we have annual reports and economic data, so we can pull that together. How do you measure social impact? How do you wrap yourself around that?
When I think about social impacts, I think every organization creates a social impact in terms of the workers working over there. And GRI is not just about the large companies, because right now we are also working with the small foundry sectors in India. Trying to come up with something called the aggregate reporting, because at times it's not possible for the smaller units to come out with separate reports, sustainability reports on what they are doing in terms of their environment and social impacts. But social impact is very important for every company, for every organization, because it is the workers which create the organization, and their welfare, what is happening in terms of their wages and every other legal implications.
So social impact means you're looking at fair wages and benefits?
Yes, just labor is one aspect of it. There are different other aspects in the social, like gender, also whether there is a gender balance within the organization or not. So specifically focused on the workers, yes, and yes.
And how, because I'm intrigued with this, what do you measure it against? What is the good social benchmark that you are saying, okay, you're almost there? What is it? Is there a global minimum wage? Is there a global context of a fair wage and benefit?
GRI, let me just brief a bit about the guidelines as such. In the guidelines, there are different aspects as well as different indicators on how to measure, manage, and change. So in the social aspects, if you see, there is the labor welfare. So what are the kind of welfares that are happening within the country specific? Are you maintaining that? Are
so you
you
measured
following
against the
that?
country?
Yes. With the other organizations also, are you up to the mark or not. You are just providing not just quantitative data, but also qualitative as to what initiatives are being taken by the organization, and then measuring and then seeing how you can manage and change if any change needs to be brought up in that, because it can create risks later on.
André, because you're in a similar line of work, obviously different. EarthCheck's been around for a while. At one point, you were, I think, connected to Green Globe, another certification group, and metrics group, but that's long apart now. EarthCheck's been standing out there. The brand, I run into it in different parts of the world. I guess the question that I would have, there's a two-part question.
Love a good two-part role.
And the first part of it is, I'd like to ask you the tail end of what I just asked, Rubina here. Because I know you look at social impacts also. How do you measure those? And then I'll ask you the second part of my question.
Okay, definitely. It was interesting. I think yesterday we were talking about the quality of numbers. It's quite hard to put a specific number on social impact. So we actually do it from a percentile perspective in terms of measuring that. With our specific SPA benchmarking indicator, we actually look at, are you paying a living wage? What are you doing in terms of capacity and training? How you're looking at, really delving into the Millennium Development Goals. We also look at the distance that you actually employ staff from. When we were first doing the research, it was very hard to try and sit there and quantify it. So we started to say, well, the intention then is to actually start to look at local employment. So not shipping someone in. Macau goes through an incredible period in trying to ship in staff. So for us was looking at the distance where you're actually employing people, and then that really started to give us some interesting data points in terms of where that fits. We also find that within local destinations, they're wanting to include their own measurements. So what's really crucial, I think, for any of us is what's the outcome you want to achieve? I mean, ultimately, we just want to produce a clean, safe, healthy environment for visitors to come and live and work and play. So it's very simple that what we're actually all trying to achieve. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate the issue. So I think from a social perspective, crucially, it's looking at locals. We were talking earlier on about Alila. When they actually go and build a property, one of the first things they do is actually go to the community and say, do you even want us here? So before we even build anything, what can we do with the community here? What is it that you want? Do you want clean water, education? So I think that interaction with the community is really important. Sitting around in a walled compound and not then engaging with the community that you influence is going to create a negative impact. So I think it's a balance between quantitative and qualitative. So qualitative, measuring numbers, and then actually checklisting it, asking questions of your business and trying to improve.
I'm going to come back to my part two question for you,
Sure.
But I want to actually ask a couple of our other panelists here, anybody who wants to come in, Brian at Chiva-Som, or Andrew, Peggy, to the degree that it may be relevant. Have any of you used systems and like this? In other words, the services, not necessarily specific to these companies, but there's a fee for this. You pay for this. We were talking about ROI before. In either of your case, you've been at sustainability for a while. You said it's been in the cooker. It's now bubbled up. Have you needed to seek the services of an outside organization to measure your footprint? And if you have, has that helped you move your agenda forward?
Well, we use one of these.
Okay.
We actually researched them all and we use one of these, so I'm not going to embarrass either of them by saying which one we use. But what they do, first of all, they produce a great checklist. I mean, it's a manual. It's pages and pages. It also, through that checklist, it makes you think of things that perhaps you haven't thought of. And we're touching on corporate social responsibility here more than sustainability. It goes way beyond that. But it makes you start doing that checklist. What that then happens is, one, it gives you the ability to make sure you're working through and you benchmark. Now we can start to benchmark ourselves and see where we are. But then, and I think this is the biggest transition, it starts to produce the ability for us to affect our standard operating procedures, our thoughts, our trainings, our safety. One of the things that has come out of it is a complete change in attitude for disabilities. Now our design teams, worldwide, irrespective of what the country's codes are, we have developed our own codes and said we will go beyond that.
Okay. We've heard here an example of someone, and I assume you're still working together and doing this?
Very much so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree with what Andrew said. The the environmental and social sustainability certification programs are excellent tools to benchmark your operation in terms of energy or natural resource conservation and consumption, the social aspects, staff wellness and so forth, the type of environmentally friendly cleaning products you would use. They're at the forefront. It makes you, like Andrew said, it makes you think of things you would never think of before in terms of sustainability and your stakeholder wellness, the wellness of your staff.
Another outcome is that now we have, we've had it in place in lots of places. Thailand, for example. Thailand, our hotel in Bangkok, has been supporting local schools and actually built 2 local schools through money raised by not the guests, raised by the employees of the hotel. But what we have spun out of working with the agencies is that we said, right, now we want to actually have philanthropic programs in all our hotels. Will have it. They'll have to create their own ones, but they will have some philanthropic aspect to the local community.
Well, here's my other question on this one, on this topic, and it's good to, it's good to hear the positive feedback. We are seeing, of course, various metric programs. There's Green Globe, there's EarthCheck, there's GRI, and there are others out there, and more coming about. One of the dilemmas that I see, and I haven't figured out a clear answer for, is who certifies the certifiers? How do we know you're speaking a common language? And this was an issue that came up with WTTC because the hospitality sector came back and said, well, gee, this one's Green Globe, this one's EarthCheck, this one's another one, but is there a common denominator?
Yeah.
How do we know all of your programs are speaking the same language using benchmarks that make sense
I'd like
for
to hear
everybody?
from them first.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, it's an ocean of labels out there. I think, last count there was over 425. So, and they're constantly coming out. You have national programs, you have state programs, you have international programs. A few years back, a few came together and formed the GSTC, Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and they created a criteria just for initially hotels, and they're working on a destination standard. And that tried to unify at least a common standard to use, and then tried to engage a lot of the certification companies. The difficulty is, why do you want to be certified? What is it that you want? Are you looking for a logo? Are you looking, what is it that you as a business are trying to achieve? I think it's about really asking that question first and then seeking out an organisation that can then provide that for you. Sustainability has never been about a logo. It's never been about a marketing campaign. It's always been about an outcome. And for us, there's programs that are out there that you checklist, answer 50 questions, and then you get a stamp. So does that mean you're certified? Does that mean I can access a product? I mean, the reality is, if you have a stamp, a sustainable stamp, you're not going to be able to charge any more for a treatment or for a hotel room. We're in the green economy right now, so it's expected. I was having a conversation last night. It's expected of you as an industry to be doing and addressing sustainable products and sustainable experiences. People are expecting it. Gone are the days of just walking into a hotel room, if I'm going to use a hotel as an example, and someone says, you see, hang up the towel. I'm over that. We're over that. We don't want to see that anymore. We want someone to start engaging with clients and saying, you know what, we actually have the technology now that you can actually throw your towel on the ground because you're paying $1,000 a night. And we have a technology that's so efficient that we can wash your towels 3 times more than what you would at home.
We got about 3 more minutes, and I want to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I want to get to a couple of another point. You're nodding your head, Brian.
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Rock on.
So I'm going to go to Brian here, and then I'm going to go to Peggy, and then I guess we'll have a quick closing comment. You're nodding your head like you want to say something.
In addition to the sustainability certifications, I think that the investors and developers and owners of hotels, when you expand your operation, you should look at the LEED certification, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, to design your building for energy saving and sustainable products and materials usage, and also the Delos system. And I believe Paul is here today. You might want to talk to Paul. So it's lead and Delos for building design.
Peggy, quick question, not on certification, but if I may, where does Mission Hills want to be 5 years from now? We know all the accolades of biggest. Where does Mission Hills want to be in 5 years in the context of this topic we're talking about right now, sustainability? What would Mission Hills look like 5 years from now in China?
I think for what we have set a goal for 5 years is really very aligned with our mission statement. We want to offer a happy, harmony, and a healthy lifestyle for all. So whatever that we are doing now, not only that we are maintaining the culture and heritage of whichever region, especially China, that we are operating, and also we are implementing a lot of ecological and sustainable practices in our company. And more important, it is really the visions of our chairmen that we want to be the leader in sustainable golf. And we want to set an example and being a role model for all the golf operator and also the tourism operator in China to follow. So this is really what we have benchmarked, and we have set the goal for our sustainability.
Well, we're going to have to wrap up. There are obviously other questions. You know, one of the things that didn't come in our dialogue here, we talked about social, we talked about wages and things, very important. We understand the environmental footprint side of it. You mentioned, André, the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria, which of course speaks very directly also to specific biodiversity conservation outcomes and very specific in the context of cultural heritage. And we didn't really have a chance to look at how metrics might measure those things. I think from my own vantage point, what we have here, of course, around the table are those, there are many tools at your disposal to move your sustainability agenda forward. I think every single one of our panelists would agree that it's important, that it's doable and it's possible, and it may be helpful to do it through a program where they can help you measure your metrics. There are at least half a dozen, if not more here, who've done it without that system. The point and the takeaway from this is the following. To take your sustainability agenda to the next level in your businesses, there is a great toolkit available. There is a lot of experience out there. And you'll also see, for example, best practices demonstrated through WTTC's Tourism for Tomorrow Awards. You can see what companies are doing. You're not alone. You're not lost. And it can happen. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.